One of the most important topics is the topic about the foundation of our lives. Now, during our lifetime, we will reap from the foundations that we choose to lay down for our lives. Now, whatever those foundations are, it's only a matter of time before the results show. Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Witi, and here I handle topics that help young people make better decisions. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing. If I were to ask you, what is the most important part of a house? What would your answer be? You would say foundation. Why? Because the foundation is what holds the house in place. It carries the weight of the house. And that's why foundations are so expensive, because they have to be done just right. You see, it doesn't matter how beautiful of a structure you build, it doesn't matter how glamorous the building is. If there is no proper foundation in place, it will eventually come crashing down. Now, our lives are like the construction of a home. The decision that you're making today, whether you know it or not, you are actually laying down a foundation for your life. Now, we have seen this where a child is brought up well with proper teachings by their parent. Now, this child grows up and goes to college, and then all hell breaks loose. They engage in sexual immorality, alcohol, and all sorts of crazy things. Or lovebirds. Two young people fall in love and they get married. After 6 months, the cracks begin to appear. And before you know it, they're divorced. What do you think is wrong with the foundations? Now, to help us answer this, I want us to look at two men. And I think that we can so relate to these two men. And they will help us be able to understand this topic much better. We find this story in Matthew chapter 7 verse 24. Jesus is coming to the end of one of the greatest sermons ever preached, the Sermon on the Mount. And I'm going to read it. Therefore, whoever hears the sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him to a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain descended, floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. But everyone who hears these sayings of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain descended, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it fell, and great was its fall. Let's compare and contrast. Both men shared a vision. They wanted to build a house. Both men listened to the words of Jesus, so both of them knew the truth. Now, both men faced the same storm. Now, that's where the comparison stops and the contrasting begins. These men had different characters. One man was foolish, and the other one was wise. The two men had two different foundations. Now, the foolish man, he decided to take the easy way out. And so he built the foundation on the sand. It's quick, it's cheap. He saved himself, a lot of work. No digging and all that hard stuff. Now, the wise man decided to build foundation, a proper foundation. So he dug deep and he laid his foundation on a rock. It probably took him a lot of extra effort. Probably took him money and time. The two men experienced different results. Now, it was all fine until the storm came. One house fell and the other one stood. Because the storm always reveals how strong your foundation is. What can we learn from this story? Number one, everyone is a builder. We are all building a life, little by little, day by day, choice by choice. Number 2, the storms of life will come. Now, no one is exempt from the storms of life. It could be failure of exams, sickness like cancer. It could be great temptations that come into our lives. How do we hold up against this? Do we fall into temptation? Do we fall into depression? Do we turn to alcohol? Because when these storms of life come, the quality of our foundation is actually exposed. Number 3, your foundation matters. For example, how do people build their lives on shifting sand? Many people actually build their lives on things like talent, their careers, wealth, power, financial security. And when storms come, their lives just fall apart. When people make talent their foundation, and we often see this in the public arena, where singers die of drug overdose, or athletes use performance-enhancing drugs. When you build marriage on vain foundations, like beauty and wealth, so you see her pretty face and you're dazzled by it, so you don't bother to look at character. But beauty is shifting sand, and soon you realize that it takes more than a pretty face to do marriage. Or you're dazzled by his car and his money, and so you enter into marriage on that basis, and soon you realize it takes more than a car and money. When you cross the boundaries that God has set for sexual purity and you sleep around because culture says it's okay, and after all everybody's doing it, shifting sand. When you go to the exam room with that Mwakenya and you cheat on your exam, that's shifting sand. When you disobey the authority that God has put over you, that's shifting sand. What you're doing with all these decisions is building your house brick by brick. And payday is coming. Because sometimes you think that we can get away with it. But when you have the wrong foundation in place, it will always catch up with you. And so today we live in a world where many are demoralized, defeated, overcome by sin, because they built their life on shifting sand. And so we have addictions, suicides, we have jail, disgrace, divorces, even death. Now, how can we build a solid foundation? That's a big question. How do we do this? You will always know how high a building will go by how deep the builder goes. We all want a good career, a beautiful family, and the ability to be able to impact our community. You cannot desire a big, wonderful life and not be willing to dig deep and put up a good foundation. You'll be lying to yourself. 1 Corinthians 3:11 says, "No other foundation can a man lay than this one, which is Jesus Christ." We build our lives on Christ when we do two things: when we hear and when we do. There is only one thing that separates the two men that we talked about earlier, and that's doing. The wise man heard and he did. Our foundations must be formed before the storms come. You can't say that I'll wait for the storms to come, then I'll work on my foundation. We prepare for the storm before the storm. That way, when the storms come, we will stand. So, the question I want to ask is, are you a hearer or a doer? Now, I have searched all over, and I can tell you this for sure, that Jesus is the only firm foundation. All other ground is sinking sand. I pray that He is the one you choose. That's all for today. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button, like, and share this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.